how do you get people to understand like the value that you bring to the table?
Gotcha. It's all about branding, right? And because you can have all the value in the world, you can have all the knowledge in the world, you can have all the service in the world, but if no one knows you're there, it doesn't really matter, right? There's a lot of people who only do the branding side, so I do want to say you should probably provide the service first. Start small, provide the service, make sure you're really an expert in the field, and like you're true to your word. You know, what you're putting out there is something you can deliver. That's what I would recommend. And then do the branding afterwards. It's so important these days when it comes to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of those things. It's key in business these days.
Welcome to the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast, where nothing is off limits. If you're interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate, and you want to learn some of the insider secrets and uncensored truths from the true professionals in and around real estate, you've come to the right place. Now, let's buckle up for the uncensored truth about real estate and join your host, Brian Cardenas.
All right, everybody, welcome to the next episode of the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. If you are catching us on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified when we have another episode dropping. And if you're catching us on your favorite podcast platform, do us a favor, give us a review. If you give us a 5-star review, we'd love it. Share the episode with your friends. And we've got a great episode here today. We're bringing on a special guest, Jonathan Normolle from New York City, Lower Manhattan, right?
That's correct. Lower Manhattan, downtown Manhattan, whichever.
Downtown Manhattan. He's with Serhant. Yep. And good enough to stop walking around the city to join us in his seat there. And just want to say thank you, first of all, Jonathan, for joining us.
Of course.
So we've got different markets that you and I live and work in. You're in the city. I'm out in Arizona. Right. Tell me what's going on in your market.
I mean, when it comes to New York, my opinion is always New York is sort of, it's been known to be sort of the strongest real estate market, right? And it's also been known to always bounce back. So when it comes to like any sort of natural disaster or something like 9/11, which is terrible, but any sort of thing that's happened like that, which would usually deter people from a city, usually New York City sort of always recovers. You know, when 9/11 happened, no one thought that you would ever live in a skyscraper again. And downtown Manhattan was basically, it was done. Everyone was moving. It's like skyscrapers are done. We're never living them again. But the city sort of recovers. And I mean, after COVID, when we sort of opened up all the lockdowns, we had an amazing year. So it recovers pretty quickly. And I'm not sure how much of a depth you want me to go into here, but we're not in my market specifically, and what we do at Serhant, we're definitely more on the luxury side. But so that side really hasn't changed a ton, other than we're just seeing a little more cash deals, like a decent amount of cash deals, more than we usually would. The thing that has changed is inventory. So compared to last year, for example, we're down by 60%. So that's a significant amount, right?
Wow.
And deals in contract, yes, is also down by 30 or 35%, I think. But price-wise, we're only down by 5% compared to last year. And negotiability in our market is up by 15%. So the price you're seeing unlisted is not the price you're usually going to get in this kind of market. But I think it's going good for how the world is right now. I'm not complaining.
Yeah. And, you know, it sounds kind of similar to a lot of markets across the country, the people that I talk with. You know, we're seeing a little bit of a price drop, you know, a little bit of room for negotiations, activities down, listings are down. Yeah. But I know that right after the turn of the new year, it seems like activity, both in showings and open houses, applications, new contracts have picked up dramatically. Are you seeing the same thing?
For sure. And I think people will always need a place to stay. Like people need to a place to live, or maybe someone needs to relocate for a job, or whatever the situation may be. And New York is the hub of sort of America, at least I like to think so. So there's a lot of people coming and going all the time, whether or not that's a move based on a market right now, whether it's in a good market or a bad market. There's a lot of other factors that are sort of playing into that, right? So New York City has sort of, it's never let me down in that sense. Yes, some days are better than others, and some markets are better than others, but I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on us, at least. I think it's a time to get more creative. If you are on the real estate side, it's a time to get more creative, and it's a time to really hone your skills, because it's more difficult than a regular market for sure. So I think use it as a time to get more creative in doing deals, and maybe put a little more effort, and not to say that we don't always give our full effort, but maybe put a little more pressure on things you usually wouldn't have, and sort of start finessing deals in a different way, and really growing and seeing how you can learn from sort of being in a difficult market. That's what I've found, at least, is sort of the best thing for me in these types of markets, is that whenever I come out on the other side, I've always learned something.
Yeah, and that's what you have to do. I mean, if it's a tough market or a setback, you got to learn from it. I mean, you can't just let it beat you down and stay down. You got to come back, just like you said, like New York City always does. They might be the epicenter of a disaster, or natural disaster, or 9/11, or a pandemic, or whatever. Like it just always comes back. One thing you said, though, that was curious to me, that I thought might have been different, is that you're seeing more cash deals now than you were seeing in the past. I mean, my perception would have been that there's always a lot of cash deals.
Yeah, and my mistake there. It's not more than before. We're I guess we're not seeing as many regular deals, but we're just seeing a lot of more cash compared to the amount of rates that are being out. So a lot of the people that are buying, the majority of people that are buying today is usually cash. It's not that there's a large amount of that group of people, but the majority of our buyers today is cash. But it's not that number is higher than last year at all.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that there was a lot of cash. I mean, when you do see people that are coming in and looking for, I mean, what's your typical price point in the clientele that you deal with? Because you see some of the listings on there. I mean, $1.5 million is $1.5 million, but it's like not outlandish for some markets. But then you get into the 2, 3, 4 million. Like, what are you typically dealing with?
So, I mean, it depends. The bread and butter, I want to say, is probably 1 to 2 million. The faster there's more people looking for it, they're not going to sit on the market for that long. But what we mainly deal in is Serhant signature, so anything above 7 million, and that's on the buy side, on the sell side, and it sort of depends on how we delegate it, but because some agents will be on it and some agents won't. But when it comes to buyers in that sort of price range, it's different. The market is definitely also a big factor, but if they're looking to get something, they're looking to get something. And it's not based on how the market is today or tomorrow. If they think a little differently. I think how the market is currently and who it's really going to affect the most is the 1 to 2 range, or even below 1, right?
Sure.
Yeah. What about you in your market? Are you seeing any of, like, how do you think that's going to affect? Because I'm sure your area is a lot different than New York, right?
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I talk to people across the country, but I think the thing that, the general public, the average person out there buying a home, whether it's a $400,000 home up, to $1 million, because that's kind of an average range that we see out here, like in the Scottsdale area. Yeah. There is the perception in the general public from what they hear in the media and the talking heads and the pundits that, they're worried about the real estate market. Is there going to be a crash? They don't like interest rates being higher. Obviously, with cash buyers, that doesn't impact them. But when you're getting a loan, it certainly impacts things. So we saw in the last half of last year in a lot of markets, a pretty significant slowdown because interest rates escalated. So a house that you might be looking at $600,000 or $800,000 was costing you twice as much as it was at the beginning of the year.
Right.
So that made a big difference. But I think the best thing that we can do in the industry is to try to educate people on what the expectations are for the market. I mean, I don't know anybody outside maybe somebody that's a talking head on TV or on the internet, just, chiming in on stuff that nobody expects a big decrease in real estate. Right.
I don't like, what would you say to people who are coming to you concerned, that have been looking at the news, worried about the market? I'll be completely honest with you, this is something I'm like, listen, I don't know. Like when people ask me, I can't promise you. I don't know what the future is going to look like, right? So I'm having that issue sometimes with clients because, of course, I'm happy to provide my service and I'm happy to, I gotta be very realistic with clients nowadays, because if you're not looking to sell, if someone is not coming to me and saying, I want to sell my home with you, here you go, let's hit the market, I'm all for that. That means they know the market and they have to sell, whether that's just because they want to get rid of the home or they need it financially. So that's fine. But in outreach to new clients on why they should sell in this market, that's difficult. So because there aren't a lot of benefits to listing your home on that. There are some, and there are certain strategies that you can use. But for me, I'm finding it hard to sort of, and I don't want to say convince because that sounds deceiving, but how do you ease their mind?
Well, I think the answer is different if you're talking to a seller or a buyer. I think, the perception that the market's going to crash, what I usually do is I will tell them why we're where we're at right now based upon the facts. And the simple facts of it is it's all related to supply and demand. We had, and everybody, that owns a house now, a lot of people, they remember 2007, 2008, 2009, they saw the huge crash in the market. And so there's the fear in the back of their mind that, hey, are we headed for that again? Because we saw such a huge rapid increase in prices. But what I let them know about is the reason that happened before is that the lending standards were way too relaxed. I mean, we like to say, if you could fog a mirror, you could get a loan back then. I mean, somebody, working at McDonald's could state that they made $150,000 a year, put no money down, have a 580 credit score, and buy an investment property. I mean, it was crazy. It was stupid. Yeah. And so because of that easy ability to borrow money, builders were building a ton of homes to try to keep up with that and make money. Well, what happened was the demand fell off because demographically there weren't the same number of people aging into that first-time homebuyer range. So demand fell off, and yet builders kept building homes for an additional 2 years. So they flooded the market with supply of homes. And anytime you have supply outpacing demand, you're going to have price weakness. Right. And so that's what predicated all of that. We're in the exact opposite situation today. Yeah. We have way too little inventory. We have more people now in that 33, 34 age range that typically buy their first home than we did back then. We've got actually 14 million more new home formations now than we had at that time. And we have way less supply than we had at that time. And builders can't make up the difference. I mean, they're way behind every year. So when you see that, you look at what's happened in the last, several months with the weakness and some prices going down in some markets. It's not everywhere. I just talked to an agent yesterday who's in Ohio. They're still having multiple offers going over list price.
It happens here too. Like it does happen. I went into a bidding war on the buyer's side last week. So it does happen, but it depends on the property, of course. And what do you like in your market? What are you seeing in terms of discounts overall, sort of listing price?
I would say kind of in that 5 to 10% range. Yeah, definitely not more than that unless somebody's just been, completely unrealistic.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like I truly don't know what this next year is really going to bring. I'm all for it, like game on, but I don't know. I don't know how it's going to turn out.
Yeah, I think, from housing prices, I think they're going to start going back up at a more moderate rate, hopefully, in the 4 to 6% range, which is kind of a normal market. I think everybody would welcome that. And if we have stability there, and I think we're going to see interest rates hopefully stabilize through this year, probably a little lower than where we're at right now.
Do you think it's going to stabilize this year and sort of?
Yeah. Yeah. The thing is, we saw that increase because of inflation, and everybody thinks it was the Fed that caused the rates to go up, but it's not. The Fed reacted after rates started going up, and rates went up solely because of inflation. And now for the last few months, we've been seeing inflation numbers coming down. What the Fed has done has made it so that it would come down. And so as inflation continues to come down, we'll see rates continue to come down. The Fed might have 2 more rate increases, but those don't directly impact mortgages. So if we start to get a stabilization of rates, anywhere in the 4.5, 5.5 range, something like that. I think that's realistic.
Yeah.
That's kind of where we've always been for the last decade, other than 20 and 21.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, again, I don't want to say anything about the future because I truly don't. I have no idea what's going to happen next year. And I feel like a lot of people are making predictions, and I just don't want to be. I'd rather be passive when it comes to that. Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I think it's an interesting market. I think it's already sort of expanding my horizon and my sort of skill set and my tool belt. I'm finding myself, I'm a lot on meetings with a lot of mortgage brokers. I'm meeting with a lot of bankers and sort of learn more insights on how to navigate the different waters that they are also, which otherwise I wouldn't have done because I didn't need to do it. Right? I didn't need to know a specific banker for the specific. And there's just different things that I'm really liking it. I would prefer the good market for sure, but I think everyone should have these kind of things, right? So it's like, this is where you grow. I don't look at it as a bad thing. I look at it as this is where I'm growing. You know, this is where putting on a little pressure, and we'll come out good. On the other side.
It's all going to make you better. I mean, whenever you get challenged and you have a little bit of adversity here, it makes you better. Well, you can fold too. You can either fold or you can get better.
For sure.
So
go ahead.
You're talking about, you're being better at your game, and you're having to get more creative. From the consumer standpoint. Like, how is it that they're supposed to choose a good agent to represent them if they're looking to sell their house? Because I think that's the biggest challenge for a lot of people.
Sure. It's funny, right? Because when I first started as a real estate agent, I was like, okay, they teach you the law, and they teach you how to go around sort of doing your real estate things, but they're really just teaching you. It's like when you go to school. You go to school, you learn what's in the book, and that's kind of that. They don't teach you how to make money. And it's sort of the same thing in real estate, where it's like, I first started on my first day. I'm like, okay, here we go. And I just sat there. I'm like, okay. You can't really. So I think when it comes to choosing a real estate agent, first of all, are you asking how to pick a good one, or like from a buyer's perspective?
Well, yeah, we can start with the buyer. Like, how do they know who the right agent is to represent them? What do they go about doing? Because you can go online and try to find somebody. You can get a referral, but even if you get a referral, how do you know that they're good?
Yeah, I mean, okay, I never really thought about it from the buyer side. I would definitely check out. So buyer side, I would check out their social medias. I would check out, because when it's on a buyer side, they're going to be part of sort of your journey on finding your new home. This is someone you're going to have to spend a lot of time with, and maybe days, weeks, months, years with, right? So you want to make sure it's someone that you like and someone that you're comfortable with. And sort of you're going to have to share a lot of personal information with them, finances, everything else. So someone that you're comfortable with or can get comfortable with, who maybe has a good recommendation from a friend or something like that. And yeah, I think honestly that's the most important thing when it comes to the buyer side. That, and of course they have to be good at what they do, and that's fairly easy to check out online. You can look at past deals, you can look at reviews and all that stuff. But mainly on the buyer side, I think it's someone you have to be comfortable with and you like them as a person.
Yeah, you do spend a lot of time with them, so you don't want to be feeling like you're tortured or
for sure
every minute that you're spending with your buyer's agent as you're going around town.
For sure. And I think, I honestly enjoy that. I really enjoy like having buyers and going around with them and sort of being part of their whole journey. I get to know someone on almost like I don't want to say intimate, but just like a deeper level than you regularly would have. Because like you're part of the journey, you sort of share that excitement with them, and they get you. And this is what I mean, where you have to get a good one. Your agent should be talking like me right now. So it should be someone that really cares and looking out for it. This is someone who's supposed to be in your corner, right? Like be there for you through that journey. This is sort of, it's your agent. It's someone in your corner. It's someone that's there to protect you, get you the best prices, and it's a unique position to be in. I'm very happy that my job allows me to do that. There's a lot of trust that's being based, right?
Do you feel like it's a different relationship or a different experience when you're working with the buyer than it is working with the seller?
Oh, for sure. For sure. It's weird, right? Because I thought about it today because we're launching a new listing here in Florida. We were doing a video tour today. And you spend less time. That's really what it is. You spend less time with them. You sit down, you have a pitch, or they reach out to you, whatever it may be. And then you're there when you're doing pictures and videos and whatever else, and that's sort of it, right? And I guess there's also more emotion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know. It's also probably case by case. I think there's more emotion when you're helping someone find their new home and sort of start their new life than to someone who's just selling and wants to leave. So they're probably more like, this is just a transaction, sell it, give me the highest price, and that's that, right? Whereas on the buyer side, I think it's just more emotion. There's more connection to it. So I think it's completely different. And not to say that we don't have a great relationship with our sellers, because we do, but it's more so like, hey, finished up showing and sending little reports and stuff like that on how the listings are going. Yeah, I think it's a huge difference for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're spending a lot more time with them. I think that's probably the biggest difference. You build more of a relationship with the buyers than you do the sellers, and it makes sense to have it seem a little bit more transactional as a seller, because
I would want that too. Right?
Yeah, I mean, if you get the opportunity to take them and go find their next house, then you probably have a much deeper relationship. But that's
true.
I think it's all a function of time at that point.
For sure.
What got you into real estate anyway?
It's a good question, but it kind of just fell in my lap on some sort of things. I've always, and I hate to be that guy, but I've always sort of been very interested in apartments and buildings and sort of see how other people are living. So I would always walk around New York City and look inside apartments, but that's not really how I got started. I was modeling at first. I moved to New York City around 16. So I came here, modeled with Ford Models, who was a big name at the time, at least, and then sort of moved into nightlife and events and whatever else. And I figured, hey, maybe I can use this network and make some good money and stuff that I actually like doing. It took some time to sort of switching, I guess, for that clientele to see me in a different light, right? Because this is someone that I'm used to, maybe being out till 4 a.m. and all those kind of things, right? So it's a different light that those clients have to see you in. So it takes a little longer for them to sort of trust you in that way. But it worked. I'm very thankful that I did it. And for me, it just makes sense. There's not one moment that I don't like about real estate. I was just telling someone I left for a vacation with my girlfriend, or not vacation. For me, it literally didn't feel like vacation. So we left to go to Denmark with my family, and I hated it. I love my family, but I hated being gone. I hated it, and it was like I felt anxious, and it was weird. And I love my day to day, and like every day for me is a vacation. I truly just love it. So for me, it just clicked, and it's something I can put my energy into, and sort of get that in return. That's at least what it was sort of for me. I don't know. What's your story on that?
No, I mean, a lot of people fall into real estate and mortgage, without the intention of getting into it. They, either had a friend that did something or had an experience. Like what I hear a lot from people is kind of surprising is, on the real estate side, is they bought their first house and it was terrible. Like the agent was terrible. The experience was terrible. And they're like, this should be so much better. I could do this better. And then they get into it, and they have they try to create the experience that they lacked. And I think that it's interesting to see that happen so often for people. But I think what it does is it gives that agent the perspective of what it's like to be a buyer and not have a good experience. And then I think those agents tend to place the client's experience as the most important thing that they do, so that they have a good relationship and continue it long term. And I think that it's probably, like you were talking about, a little bit of a challenge, because with the clientele that you're developing from your previous network of people, they had one perception, one view of you, and then all of a sudden you're in a different role. And how do you change that perception of them? And then that's probably a challenge just in your market in general, is how do you get people to understand who you are and what you're going to do for them?
Sure. It definitely took time, but it was one of those things. I didn't hide that I was a real estate agent, but I kind of did. I just didn't blast it out. I wasn't like, hey, come use me in the first couple of years when I was doing it, just because I wanted to grow my skill set. And I didn't want to sort of waste my own network if I didn't know what I was doing. So I didn't want to reach out to these people who potentially could be huge business in the future and then blow it because I don't know what I'm doing. So I started very small and started just doing rentals and sort of getting more comfortable. And I love it. So I do it, 7 days a week, like 14, 16 hours. But I like it, right? For me, it's not work. So it sounds extreme, but it's not for me. What was the question again? I got lost there.
Well, just how do you get people to understand like the value that you bring to the table?
Gotcha. It's all about branding, right? And because you can have all the value in the world, you can have all the knowledge in the world, you can have all the service in the world, but if no one knows you're there, it doesn't really matter, right? There's a lot of people who only do the branding side, so I do want to say you should probably provide the service first. Start small, provide the service, make sure you're really an expert in the field, and like you're true to your word. What you're putting out there is something you can deliver. That's what I would recommend. And then do the branding afterwards. It's so important these days when it comes to Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of those things. It's key in business these days, right? And then community where I live, for example, Seaport in downtown. I'm on the board of directors in Downtown Magazine, just before doing different events and networking and all this different stuff where you're sort of a neighborhood hero, I like to call it. But everybody in the community knows me and they know that I'm a real estate agent. So that one is simple and it's easy. And it could be as easy as going to the coffee shop around the corner every morning and just building a relationship and introducing the fact that, hey, I'm Jonathan, and you see me every day. And they know you're a real estate agent. You're not going in there and saying, hey, buy, sell, or rent today. Yeah. It's just, hey, my name's Jonathan, and like I'm a real estate agent. But it's consistency and it takes time going to all those different places and showing your face. You have to get out there. It's a lot of work.
No, I think that's really good advice because, if somebody's not a good like technician, as I would say, in their job, in their industry, then, you're going to let people down. You can have a great brand and then they get into the actual transaction with you and then they get let down because you weren't good at the job. Right. So I think it's great advice.
Yeah. And I think unfortunately, there's a lot of that going on as well. So it should be both for sure.
Yeah. Well, and it is, I mean, the whole branding and, how you're having the perception put out there or just being out there, whether it's face-to-face, like you said, in your community or online, people now, like they might meet you personally and then they're going to go look at you online and find out what you're all about.
Right. Exactly. And trust me, that's happened before, but this was just a good way. But if there's something bad about you online or anything like that, they have to match. The two have to match. So whatever, even if it's a persona, or not to say that you put on an act, but sometimes you amplify yourself a little bit, right? Whether that's in person or online, it should match. It really should. I don't think you're going to shoot yourself in the foot if you're doing something online that you're not able to do in person, and especially when it comes to real estate. That's why I don't think that stuff works. So any sort of professional industry, honestly, I think that's hugely important. But I don't know, how do you find brands and whatever else in your sort of industry? Is it still your own branding? I guess it's still getting your reach out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, I think, a lot on the company that you work with. There's a lot of companies out there, bigger mortgage bankers that are very, very tight on their compliance, which we should all be tight on that. But they like to have their brand at the forefront, and the lender, the loan officer, be a part of their brand, so that it's more of a corporate branding thing that they try to do. Whereas when you get to mortgage brokers and things like that, which we are, there's a little more freedom to allow you to brand yourself, of course, in a compliant way. But I think it's important to do that personal branding.
For sure. I mean, in either way. But so let me ask you this. So does your company, do they feed you potential clients? Or are you also in charge of is there any benefit to you generating them outside of the company? Like, let's say, for example, someone on this podcast sees our lovely conversation and reaches out to you. Is there, how does that structure work? I'm just curious. I don't know much about it.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing about our industry is we're like one of the only industries that I know of where the loan officer, like in my position, is responsible for the advertising, the marketing, the sales, the fulfillment, the post-closing satisfaction. I mean, like, we have to do all of these different jobs. And so some companies have tried to break it up and make it so that you can focus on what you're good at and what you like doing. And that is, the client relationship, the upfront work. But most companies, there's big companies like the ones that you hear about that do all the commercials and everything. They do all that advertising. They generate the client or the prospective client, and then they feed it to the loan officer, who's more of the technician. But most companies, the loan officer is responsible for going out and getting the business, developing the relationships with realtors, doing their personal branding, getting the leads coming in, and then they handle more of the fulfillment process, the processing of the loan, getting it approved and closed. But the loan officer is still involved all the way through.
It's commission based, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, I mean, most of them are commission based. There's some companies that will, pay very small commissions and do salaries, but a lot of those companies have had to lay a lot of people off in the last year. Just not enough business coming in to support paying salaries to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. I mean, it's interesting. So, I mean, and the more and more people I talk to this about, we're also in, I forgot who told me this the other day, but we're in the gig economy, where it's, at least in New York, there's a lot of sort of, just like there's Uber instead of taxis now, and there's, if I need someone to come clean something up in my home, there's a TaskRabbit that can come. There's independent contractors left and right. If I need a grocery thing, there's a warehouse over there where a guy comes on a bike, picks it up. It's like all of these sort of different, it's just interesting. It's not as much sort of employment. I guess you can look at that as employment, but more self-employment. And I think that's sort of it's spreading. So branding, if that spreads further and there's not as much as employment as there used to be, there always will be, of course. But branding, I think, is the most important thing after you've learned your skill set.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, those types of gig economy jobs, there's a difference, I think, in how some of them function. Like, if you're doing like Uber or, DoorDash or what have you, I mean, there's really no personal branding in there. It's all corporate brand, they're driving the revenues, and they're just people providing services and being paid as a contractor. But then there is a lot of stuff where it is the personal brand, you're, self-employment, you're generating your own business, small business kind of thing. And it is, I mean, that's kind of the American way, Yeah,
I'm all for it. I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's great. It just, again, I think the main downside to that, or danger with it, being the brand can outdo the actual service, right? And I think that is happening a lot. I think it's happening more than we want it to,
Yeah, well, definitely have to have the service to support what that brand image is. Otherwise, that brand image will crumble. Pretty
yeah, that's true. And it will crumble fast. That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays there's so much. Have you seen that the chat thing, the AI?
Yeah, the Chat GPT. Yeah.
Game changer. I use it almost every day now.
Oh, do you?
Almost every day now. I mean, it's, at least for an agent, it's amazing. Because emails and whatever else that usually takes up a lot of time, it can do in seconds, and I can put like a little more fun into it, a little more excitement. And so far, what I've seen, the data is sort of on point. Like, even to write a description, and now we don't do this, we have a real copywriter, but even to write a description for a building, it can go in and do it, and even for the apartment. Like, you can go in and write down to detail, 14 height ceilings, southwest facing windows, down to detail. It's kind of crazy. I think that's going to be one of those tools where it's like, if you're not using AI, it's almost like people don't have a phone nowadays. I think it's one of those things we have to get going on quickly.
Yeah, I think I was just seeing, I think it was this morning I saw something online. I think it was Pace Morby was talking about how the Chat GPT function is going to basically get rid of so many jobs because all the chats, answering questions. I didn't hear the responding to emails, but that's interesting that it can just handle that a lot of times better than the human being can.
100% better. And it's, I mean, copywriting for sure, done. I mean, it's kind of crazy how much this thing can do. It scares me a little bit as well. Because, I mean, once they put it, and this is going to sound, conspiracy theory or whatever, but once you can put that thing inside a robot, That's what I'm at. You know? I don't like that. But I can see it being super useful, and what I hope it does, instead of the iRobot thing, what I hope it does is that it elevates everyone who's sort of willing to adapt it, right? I hope it elevates us all and it raises the bar in each and every field. That's what I really hope it does. But that, of course, everyone has to adapt it for that to happen, which I think they will once they really realize how useful it is. But that's what I hope it does. I don't know if it will, but I think that could be cool. Adding sort of another tool to our belts, right? Imagine life without a phone or a smartphone.
Yeah,
so
I lived through that.
Yeah,
it's hard to imagine now, but I did live through that.
You want to buy a house, but high interest rates have got you down? Take the rate challenge and send us a verifiable loan estimate from another lender, and we'll beat it and pay for your appraisal up to $600. Here at Give Mortgage, being powered by UMortgage allows us to provide you with unmatched speed and efficiency and the best rates and fees in the market, all while delivering you the concierge level service you deserve. We want you to have an experience getting a mortgage that you'll never forget, and not because you got put through a meat grinder to get it. At Give Mortgage, we give great advice, we give the best rates, and we give back to charity. Visit us at www.give-mortgage.com or call us at 480-331-4684 to schedule a free consultation to see how we can help.
So when you're thinking about it, like put your consumer hat on right now, like what do you think is something that consumers just don't understand about the real estate industry that they probably should understand?
Sure. I think real estate is almost like every job combined because it's for every person in the world. Everyone needs a home. So there's so many things that goes into it, but I think the main thing that people, at least if you're looking to buy something or sell something, is like I saw a great diagram the other day of someone trying to explain it. You can open a door. That's not even a percentage of what we do. If you're looking to sell your own home or you're looking to buy something, you don't want to go and represent it. It's the do-it-yourself attitude. Listen, it works. You can get it done, right? Like you can do it. But you don't, if you want to get a professional painting done of you, you don't hire your neighbor, You hire a professional painter. And it's the same way in real estate, but I do think it's because of, and I understand the sort of confusion, because there's Street Easy, there's Zillow, there's all these different sites where it's just like, hey, I can see it right here. I can click on this button and there I go, and I'm there. And the same thing on the listing side. It's also like I can just post it on here and people come. And in theory, yes. But legally, for example, on the buyer side, legally, the selling agent, the guy who's representing the seller, has no obligation to really tell you anything. His legal obligation is to get his seller the highest and best price. So if you're going in there without an agent, and that's really just one point. Negotiation is one thing, but there's a ton of different sort of factors that I think are just beneficial, especially on the buying side, because there's no fee. There's no fee at all. And that's a miscommunication. That's actually a good point. In New York, they think that if you don't work with an agent on the buyer side, you're likely to get a better deal. Like they might prefer you over another one because, of course, the listing agent gets a higher increase in commission. But it's just not the case here in New York. Honestly, if I'm selling something, I want there to be an agent on the other side because I don't want to deal with something that's going to fall apart in 2 weeks, and it likely will, or it's going to be a pain to deal with, especially with co-ops or strict boards, luxury buildings. There's so many things involved where it can just fall apart so easily. It already sort of falls apart sometimes with agents who are great, like fantastic agents. But yeah, that would be my main thing for buyers, at least. Do it. There's no fee, and no one's going to give you, your offer is not better with or without an agent. For sure.
Yeah, I think that's a misperception that people have all over the place, is that you're going to get a better deal out of it. But what they don't seem to understand sometimes, I think, is that even if you have, let's say that listing agent says, I'm going to do a dual agency and I'm going to represent both parties, they may try their best. But who's paying them? Like the seller's paying them. Like I don't know how that even exists, to be honest with you, because it's a total conflict of interest.
Yeah, I have no idea. And that's fantastic. Who's paying them, right? I have no idea. And I've never done it. I've never done it. Rentals, we do it quite often, but that's just sort of, and it also depends on the price point, but it's not really, in rentals, there's not much negotiation or anything. That really is just mostly open the door. You want it, don't want it, you know.
Right.
The work on the rental part is sort of the landlord and the bigger accounts and all that other stuff. It's really not bringing people in. Yeah, it's interesting that, and we run into that problem quite a lot with buyers who are looking, and we're part of all these programs as sort of experts. So we get fed a lot of people who are looking to buy in our specific areas to help them out. And so it's part of like my everyday pitch is, you know, hey, we're part of this experts program of whatever, and you know, we're here to help. We see you're looking on your own, but we're here to be in your corner and protect you and sort of guide you through this journey. Right, and there's no fee at all or anything like that, and we're good at what we do, all the whole spiel, right? But still, someone is like, nah, because I'll get a better deal, or no, agents. So I also think we have a bad rep, unfortunately. You know, I think that's a big thing, and I think that's going to take a while to change. I think agents need to be a little cooler and drop the blue suits, and that's going to take a while. Everyone thinks real estate agents are not trustworthy, which is crazy because that's the thing we're supposed to be. You know. But we meet a lot of resistance for sure on that, and people want to go at it alone, and that's fine as well.
Well, the crazy thing to me that I've seen, and I just had a client go through this, that people believe advertising pitches from big companies that appeal to what they want to hear, and they'll trust that over an individual like real estate agent or mortgage broker giving them honest, actual, true advice. And it blows me away. I mean, the whole thing with you know, these big companies that advertise all the time, and people just kind of like blindly go into it. Like I had a client who, she wanted to buy in Arizona. She's from LA. She was transferring her job out here, and she hadn't even listed her house in LA, but she so desperately wanted to get the move to happen in Arizona that she came across a company that said, okay, well, tell you what, we'll give you a guaranteed offer price for your house. And then you can go ahead and list it for 90 days. And if you don't get it sold, we'll give you this guaranteed offer price. And then if we turn around and sell it within 120 days for more than what we paid you, then we'll give you all of the difference minus our fees and holding costs. And she went for it. And then her agent here that wasn't part of it, she's like, I don't feel good about that. And then she sent stuff over to me and we talked about it. And what I was able to figure out from there was, number one, the fees and holding costs that they were going to charge her were not identified. So they were going to be whatever they were going to be. Who knows?
Fees.
Yeah. And then on top of it, I said, think about it. They're going to give you 90 days to sell your house in California.
Yeah.
That's probably not going to happen. You know, it's tough to get them sold that quickly. If you do, you know, you're kind of have to bring your price down. But if they buy that house in 90 days from you, and then you're banking on this promise that they're going to give you everything above that they sell it for, what incentive do they have to sell it for anything more than what their costs are?
Yeah.
They have zero incentive because they're not going to get anything out of it. They're going to give it all to you.
Yeah.
So they're just going to sell it for whatever they need to get rid of it to dispose of the property and move on. And they offered you, in her case, I think it was like a $625,000 market value. They offered her like $480,000. So they were getting it for dirt cheap. That's how they were going to guarantee that they'd buy it. And people just don't think it all the way through when they see these advertisements. Yet an individual like you, they're going to say, oh, I'll get a better deal, because I'm going to go unrepresented as a buyer. Like,
I agree. And we see those all the time. I will say though, New York specifically is a little, like, I feel like they're a little more seasoned maybe, or like they don't fall for it as quick. But I've talked to a ton of people where it's like, they'll go with it's some like a automated system online. You're dealing with an AI sort of thing. They're chatting with you and sending you different listings. So you don't have to pay a fee, but then you have to pay, like, you don't pay from the transaction, but then you pay another form of fee where it's like for, it could be copywriting, it could be a membership fee, and all these sort of different things, and it usually just adds up. I saw one where this was a rental service, and I know because I saw their van out here. It was a rental service that said no fee at all, and we will I think it was like almost like a party bus kind of theme. We'll ride you around with roommates and whatever else it may be. And they had to pay, of course, for the buses and everything else, and they signed not a disclosure but a contract with them, and I think they're getting sued. I'm not sure, but that way they paid for that. So they paid for all this extravaganza to get an apartment that was basically $2,000, $3,000 for nothing. So you might as well just pay that little fee. When it comes to rentals, though, I will agree. I don't think a fee should be on the tenant. I think it should be on the landlord.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I think the people would do themselves a service by finding a good professional real estate agent to guide them through the process, because I mean, the consumers do it a few times in their life, and you guys do it every day. And I think that serves people better. And find somebody that you trust, check them out, go online, see, their testimonials and their reviews and things like that. And if somebody thinks that maybe Jonathan's the right person for me, give us your contact info. How do people check you out and get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Hopefully I am. I mean, my Instagram, I can put, I don't know, is there a little thing I can put it on?
We'll put it on when we publish it.
Gotcha. So it's just my name, Jonathan Normolle, and then I'm on Serhant's profile as well. We have a bunch of new exciting things coming. YouTube, one of them, but also some TV stuff. So that'll be good. So you guys will see me in the future. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Reach out to me on Instagram, shoot me a text. If you have any real estate related questions, let me know, and we're happy to help.
All right. Sounds awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to join us here today. And yeah, I'd love to have people reach out to you and see if you can help them out if they're in New York City. And appreciate you guys all joining us today. Make sure you tune in again next week. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. And again, do us a favor and give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. And you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for joining us, and please remember to go and subscribe, like, share, all that cool stuff to help us grow, and come back to listen to our next episode. Until then, go out and live life uncensored.
Thanks for listening to the Uncensored Real Estate Podcast. Don't forget to help us out and subscribe. Follow and give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. And check us out on YouTube for the full video podcast. If you want more information on any of the topics discussed on today's episode, email us at uncensoredrealestatepodcast@gmail.com or give the Cardenas Mortgage team a call at 480-331-4684.